Hello and welcome to another Pokemon breeding video. In this video I want to talk about Dragonite, and I'm going to try and teach and convince you to breed your own Dragonites for competitive play. In these videos we will do a quick overview of the Pokemon's typing, talk about its abilities, then go over its base stats. After that we will do a speed tier analysis, check out its move pool, and briefly talk about its history in competitive play. After all of this, we will actually breed the Pokemon and I will go over everything from egg moves, EV training, and finalizing the moveset. Dragonite is a dragon and flying type Pokemon just like Salamence, and there are quite a few favourable typings that Dragonites can switch into or stay in against thanks to its resistances and very few weaknesses. There isn't much to say here that I haven't already covered in the Salamence video. They're the same typing, however the main difference here that I alluded to in the Salamence video is that Dragonite gets a very strong ability known as Multiscale. So let's talk about the ability choices now. Dragonite has two abilities, the first of which being Inner Focus, and Multiscale is its hidden ability. I don't really want to talk too much about Inner Focus as it's just an inferior ability, it's outdated. It did get some buffs where you can no longer be intimidated while you have the Inner Focus ability, so that's nice if you don't have better abilities going for you. However, I want to talk about Multiscale, so let's do that. There are two Pokemon which have the Multiscale ability, one of which is Lugia and the other one is our Dragonite. So what does the ability actually do? Well, when you're at full HP and you take a attack and this attack does damage, this damage is halved, or effectively the attacker only has 50% of their power when the move is dealt to our Dragonite. I know the wording is a little bit funny, but effectively, and the more simple way to think about it is, if you're full HP, you take half damage for the next hit that you would take. Of course this has its pros and its cons, it can be played around, and it also does not affect things such as statuses which damage you, and also entry hazards. It also does not apply to moves that hit you more than one time, it will only work for the first hit. So there are ways to work around this, there are ways to exploit it, but there are also ways to reapply Multiscale with healing moves, such as Roost, Rest, Wish, and Healing Wish. What this gives Dragonite and Lugia by extension is a defensive layer that no other Pokemon is really able to obtain, and it also makes Dragonite this sort of problem. If it's on the opponent's side of the field, you have to find a way to remove the Multiscale to have a much more guaranteed way to win the battle. It can create quite interesting situations, and it's a very unique ability, and it fosters a very unique playstyle. Let's talk about base stats, and of course Dragonite is a pseudo-legendary. Fun fact, it's actually the very first pseudo-legendary Pokemon, meaning that it has a base stat total of 600. For starters, the attack stat being 1 point lower than Salamence means that Dragonite is a very strong physical attacker. However, if we do some more comparisons with Salamence and Dragonite, we will also notice that Dragonite's special attack is 100 and Salamence's is 110. Okay, sure, so this is a difference of 10 base stats, right? How important can it be? Well, actually, there is a moveset differential here where there aren't too many special moves that Dragonites take. I think maybe in original Gen 4 metagame, you might see a Dragonite with Ice Beam. However, there are special attacker variations of Salamence which have been ran through recent metagames where it's not quite the same for Dragonite. These two contributing factors are reasons why you don't see too many special attacking Dragonites. Not to say that it's impossible, however, you're kinda lacking in a lot of departments, whereas Salamence can still make use of its high speed and its coverage from its larger move pool on the special side to make up for the fact that it doesn't have a sky-high 130 special attack stat, for example. So Dragonite is slower than Salamence, it's 1 point lower in the physical attack than Salamence, and it's 10 points lower in the special attack. So it sucks, right? Surely? Well, no. The difference is made up in the defenses, where Dragonite gets 95 in defense and 100 in special defense, whereas Salamence has 80 in defense and special defense. And you can see where 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 point differences between Pokemon actually makes a big deal. When we're talking about defensive base stats here, we're also talking about the fact that Dragonite gets Multiscale. This is a defensive ability. Naturally, it makes it harder to kill. So if its defensive base stats are also higher, it's harder to kill. So it's harder to kill in two regards. which makes it much more defensive than Salamence, which means that it might be able to live some situations where Salamences would die. So again, thumbs down in some places, thumbs up in others. You know, these aren't the same Pokemon. They might have the same types, get a lot of the same moves, have the same sort of play styles. However, things do play out differently just because of abilities and base stat distributions being slightly different. Okay, time for speed tiers. The base 80 speed stat that Dragonite has puts it in the same category as Gallade, Togekiss, and Mamoswine. However, it's not until Dragonite gets a +1 speed boost from Dragon Dance that it can really compete with the much faster Pokemon. An Adamant Dragonite with +1 move speed can outspeed a modest Dragapult, which has a 142 speed stat. Realistically though, Dragapults are known to run timid nature, so this information is more of an indication of how effective a single Dragon Dance is for Dragonite. Dragonite really wants 1 or even 2 Dragon Dances just so that it can reliably outspeed hard hitters, while also doing enough damage to one-hit KO and retain its multiscale. If you instead choose to pick a Jolly Dragonite, then you will be able to outspeed timid Dragapults with a single Dragon Dance, which is pretty good. However, if the timid Dragapult is Choice Scarfed, then even a +2 Dragon Dance boosted Jolly Dragonite will not be able to outspeed. That's just how much faster Dragapult is. So do bear that in mind. If you are outspared in these situations, it's all about information. You will know when a Dragapult is Choice Scarfed in this situation. A single Dragon Dance allows our Dragonite to outspeed a lot of stuff, but the base 80 stat naturally leaves it around the middle of the pack, so you should really be wary of picking your time to Dragon Dance, as you can be quite vulnerable without your multiscale active to help you reduce some damage if you are going to go for a setup move such as Dragon Dance. Alright, on to move choices now. Dragonite and its pre-evolved forms can learn Dragon Dance through leveling up, and Dragonite can access both Roost and Extreme Speed from the move reminder. A lot of TMs and TRs can be taught to Dragonites, so there are certainly options. However, the main strategy of incorporating Roost and Dragon Dance into a moveset really limits Dragonite's potential to take a more niche move, just due to the lack of space. You only get 4 moves, remember. You can certainly have your fun with a Choice Specs version, which only takes special attacks, or the classic Dragon Dance with 3 attacks movesets, but of course your mileage may vary, and the Roost and Dragon Dance moveset is the more tried and true, consistently late game sweeping moveset for Dragonite. In terms of Dragonite's competitive playstyle history, it's pretty much always been a high tier Dragon Dance user because of its late game potential. Of course, multiscale was introduced in Generation 5, which immediately buffed Dragonite and saw it become a much more consistent late game sweeper, and it also allowed Dragonite to use a Lumberry instead of a different item, as you could use this as a way to protect yourself from a status effect, at least a single time. Dragonites are quite high priority targets for Thunder Waves, Will-O-Wisps and the like, so a Lumberry over a Life Orb, for example, became a much more staple item in Generation 5 and onwards. Choice Band has also been a fairly popular moveset for Dragonite users throughout the years, but definitely took a hit with the introduction of Fairy types, and this is also because that moveset would use Outrage, which is a Dragon type move that you are locked into for 2 or 3 turns. Of course, if you use Outrage onto a Fairy type, then it doesn't affect the Fairy type, so they get a free switch in or some sort of momentum against you, and that's generally not great. It's more of a trade-off than anything. You could still use Outrage with a Choice Band, however, just be aware of the Fairy types. I've spoke about it at different points in the video, but Dragonite can have a very hard time with residual damage from things such as Sandstorm and Hail, entry hazards, and status effects, as they do break the multiscale. However, a well-played Dragonite can cause serious damage to defensive team compositions and is very hard to bring down if played correctly, so it may take you some practice, you may need to gain some experience in competitive play, but ultimately, if you make good decisions or you make risky decisions that pay off, Dragonite will deliver when you need it the most. Okay, time to breed our Dragonite, and if you have been following along at home, you have 2 options when it comes to passing down Dragon Dance. You can either do this by leveling up your Dratini, or you can simply pass it down from a Bagon in the previous video if you have a male Bagon that knows Dragon Dance. Put that in with your female hidden ability Dratini. It's quite important that you make sure you have a hidden ability, because that's the only way that you can keep passing passing down hidden abilities. Of course, ways to obtain a hidden ability Dratini are very limited. It's pretty much just trade for it from someone else who's breeding, or use an ability patch. And let's be honest, in Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, 200 battle points takes a long time, so would you justify it? Would you really justify the cost? I probably would, but then again, I trade so much and with so many different people that this isn't my sort of problem. It's more of a problem for someone else who doesn't have the luxury of a community. But that's also why you can join my Discord and other Discords and embrace that Pokemon is a game that brings people together. I would definitely recommend not spending the time grinding for a ability patch. So let's say that you do have a hidden ability Dratini that we can now breed with to get higher IVs. We of course want to get two things. We want our 5 IVs, so our HP, attack, defense, special defense, and speed, but we also want to make sure that we hatch the Dratini and it has the hidden ability, which I believe is Marvel scale. So there's two things to look for here. It could take some time, you could get lucky. You know, breeding is basically just mashing numbers together until you get the right outcome. But once you do have your 5 IV hidden ability Dratini, you can now go to the EV training stage, and as usual, following in line with the other videos in this series, the EV spread is quite simple this time around, being max speed, max attack, and the last 4 points in defense. As always, check the EV training videos if this is the first video in the series you watched and you haven't heard me say this every other time. Once you have finished your EV training stage, however, it is time to finish leveling up, and of course you need to fully evolve your Dratini all the way into a Dragonite. Make sure that it's fully evolved, make sure that you've taught Dragon Dance. Finalize your moveset by just picking anything else that you might need. You can go to your move reminder if you want to teach Roost or Extreme Speed. The Dragonite that I am giving away knows Dragon Dance and Roost, along with Outrage and Fire Punch. So if you would like the chance to win this Dragonite, you can go over to Twitter and check out the giveaway. This is only going to be up for the first few days of this video going live, so if you want to check these videos as they come up, then make sure you're subscribed over here on YouTube as well. That's it for this video. We now have 3 battle ready Pokemon, so if you are following along at home, big pat on the back for you, and maybe you just want to learn a few new things. Hopefully you did, or hopefully I convinced you that Dragonite is a good Pokemon. Either way, thank you all for watching, and maybe I'll see you in the next one.